Hi, it's Tommy. Before we get started, I just want to let you know this episode is brought to you by Pod Hero, the easiest way to support your favorite podcast. Did you know that only 1% of the biggest podcasts make money? It's true. The other 99%, wink wink, like this one, rely on support from listeners like you. With Pod Hero, you can support all of your favorite podcasts with one monthly membership fee of only $4.99. Just click on the link in the show notes. Tell Pod Hero your favorite podcast. Please don't forget this one, Blending the Family. And your contribution gets shared between shows at the end of the month. I want to say I am enjoying being part of Pod Hero's network. Pod Hero works with almost all podcasts. There's a 0% platform fee. They don't take a cut. There are no contracts. And guess what? You can try it for free for 30 days. Pod Hero. Tell them Blending the Family sent you. Welcome to another episode of the podcast known as Blending the Family. My name is Tommy Maloney. I am the host, the producer, the engineer, the booker, the marketing person, the other people that all wrapped in. Do you ever listen to, and by the way, this is episode 165 with me, your host, executive producer, booker, all that good stuff. Do you ever listen to other podcasts, like major ones, and then at the end they give the credits of everybody who put the show together? Yeah, that's me. I'm just it. The man, the myth, the legend. How are you doing today? Are you excited about today? Well, you should be excited about today. NHL. Hold on. Yeah, we'll go there. The NHL announced the new name for the Seattle hockey team that will go start playing in next season, 2021-2022 season, beginning that season. Super excited for anybody listening in Seattle. If you've ever listened to this podcast before, you might know I'm a huge hockey fan. Our son Connor plays hockey. He actually is hopefully going to play college hockey. I'm hoping and praying he plays college hockey. But the Seattle Kraken. Bring out the Kraken. So excited. So excited. I was hoping they were going to name the team the Kraken. I really was. I think it's a great name. I think that is a great name for a sports team, especially there in Seattle. So, again, if you're a hockey fan, if you live in the Seattle area, I'm super excited for you. Hopefully, Connor and I will make a trip out there and go watch a game. I still need to make a Vegas trip to go watch the Knights play, but we can't do it right now, obviously. Thank you, Captain Obvious. How are you doing? You doing good? Life good? Staying sane? Man, we got a busy weekend coming up. Busy weekend. This weekend, our daughter Becca is officially graduating from high school. We will have pretty much a full house family here to celebrate this honor of Becca moving on from high school to college. She'll be studying sports medicine, which that was my major in college. And then I realized I couldn't dissect without throwing up. Think about that. So from there, and yes, I still have this crappy chair. Would somebody please just buy me a really nice chair? Come on. You don't have to pay for this podcast. I pay for it. I put it together, as we've already mentioned. But anyway, I couldn't dissect without throwing up, so I said, well, what should I do? And I did. I said that to myself. I go, maybe I'll go become a theater major. Never took theater class, and I was only at the school I went to. I was only there for 1 year. They said, Tommy, maybe you shouldn't be in college. And I should have listened. And then I went to Columbia College in Chicago and ran out of money. Didn't get my degree. Then went to University of Phoenix. Still didn't get my degree. Anyway, so super excited about Becca. The boy, Connor's going to make a trip up here this weekend. Super excited about that. Can I say the phrase super excited a few more times? I will, because I am super excited. Haven't seen Connor since Father's Day. The guy is up to 3 jobs. This kid is working 3 jobs. I don't know where he gets that kind of gusto, that integrity. Doesn't get it from me because, yeah. Anyway. Graduation. Let me mark that off my little cheat sheet I have here. We talked about the chair. Got into a little bit of a Instagram war this afternoon with another blended family. It was ugly. They were so mean to everybody posting positive comments. And I finally said to them, what are we going to do? Are we going to meet at 3 o'clock at the monkey bars and duke it out? We should. I would love, I come from a hockey background. We would just drop the gloves. And that's the thing about, on social media. You don't know if you're talking to a guy. You don't know if you're talking to a female. Anyway, they were mean. I'm not going to mention who they were because I don't want to stoop to their level. I don't know why. They were so mean to other blended families. Oh my gosh. Anyway. If you listen to episode 164, I started talking about books I like to recommend. And on this podcast, we have the authors of the book, Our Happy Divorce, Nikki DeBartolo, if that last name sounds familiar. If you are a football fan, a San Francisco 49ers fan, that last name will definitely ring a bell. And her former spouse, Benjamin Heldfond. Again, they wrote the book, Our Happy Divorce. But before I get into that, I want to recommend. So last week or last episode, I recommend books. I'm going to recommend my own book and our kids' coloring book. How's that? So our kids' coloring book, written by Becca and Connor, called 10 Tips on How to Survive Your Parents' Divorce. You can get that on Amazon. And my book, 25 Tips for Divorced Dads. You can get that book also on Amazon. I steer you to the website, which I should. However, my dear friend Nick, who runs WTF Marketing. Thank you to Nick for helping me out again. So if you need a website, this is a free plug. I'm going to give Nick a free plug. Look up WTF Marketing. Good friend Nick. We had to change the theme from one to the other because the website was very old and was not, I guess, like me, not stable. And so we had to upgrade, Nick had to upgrade the theme of the website, and I'm still playing with it, fixing things, updating things, and right now the shopping cart is not working. So, or if you want, just send me an email, tommy@blendingthefamily.com, and you can buy books through me, and I'll take care of you. How's that? I'll take care of you until I get the silly shopping cart up. So those are the 2 books I'm going to recommend. 25 Tips for Divorced Dads, written by me, and our kids' coloring book, 10 Tips on How to Survive Your Parents' Divorce. All right. Our Happy Divorce, the book, written again by Nikki DeBartolo, Ben Heldfond, 2 incredible human beings. They really opened up my eyes. They changed my thinking about divorce and co-parenting and things like that. And this is my personal thought, okay? This is just me talking, so please bear with me. And that is, in my view, the world of divorce is ugly, okay? Regardless if kids are involved. It's just an ugly word, divorce. Ugh. Yeah. When you get into the weeds, when you have kids, divorce, co-parenting, How about parenting agreements? Those things are all part of the process. And I, again, personally feel that the way divorce is handled has to change. And with Nikki and Ben, you're going to hear their story. And I have become a convert as far as how divorce and co-parent, especially co-parenting, because that's what we're going to talk about. But this is what it should be, okay? I really, really had to take a step back, and I really had to hear from Nikki and Ben. And in the back of my mind, I have made so many mistakes as a co-parenter, as a former spouse. I did the ugliness, and in my view, again, these things have to stop. And some of the things I want to have more open conversations with my former spouse, not through just email. I want to have face-to-face conversations with her, and we've already started that process. And so, Our Happy Divorce, the book, really opened my eyes. Nick and Ben's son even writes a chapter in the book. His name is Asher. Super smart kid. I found out doing some research. Asher and Connor, my son, are same age. Connor's only a few months older. Anyway, so there we go. What did we talk about? Number one, we talked about how we can get their book. Also, one thing I want to mention, I talked in this podcast about Familyversary. Oh my gosh. Family Anniversary. I cannot read my own handwriting. So Family Anniversary was brought up by one of our past guests, Erika Englund, and I will make sure I put her episode, let me write this down, make sure I put her episode in the show notes. Again, this is why divorce in a negative way can be turned to a positive. So we talk about where to get their book. We talk about Nikki's husband, Chad, asking Asher permission to marry his mom. What else do we talk about? Co-parenting during the coronavirus. That was interesting. We talk about how Nikki's husband, Chad, and Ben's wife, Nadia, got brought into their world. And it's just, again, this is interesting. It really is. And the more I'm thinking about it, the more I really wish, I'll say it, I really wish I had this book when I got divorced. I think my relationship with my former spouse would be better. And I'll take a lot of the blame. I will. You know, when you get divorced, you feel you're being replaced. And so that was my thinking. That was my thought process. But it's not always the case. I will admit I probably wasn't such a great husband. And probably, you know, the crappy day job I have where normally I'm on the road and only home on the weekends, that probably, you know, had a little something to do with the marriage. So there you go. Again, Nikki DeBartolo, Benjamin Heldfond, on this episode of the podcast, their book, Our Happy Divorce, which you can get on Amazon and probably their website as well. All right, there you go. First time listening, I always like to end the show with a quote from Terry Crews. If you don't know who Terry Crews is, look him up. He's not just an actor. He's not just the MC of America's Got Talent, I think. Not a big TV watcher, but I think that's where it is. But he's also an artist. He's also a furniture designer. Did you know that? Did you know that? He is multi-talented. All right. Well, I need to stop recording because I'm sure our puppy Otis is eating the carpet right now, and because that's what puppies do, but we still love them. Love them. All right. Thanks for listening. If you, before I forget, one more thing about Becca and graduation. You can see the picture. I posted a picture on the Instagram, Blending Family on the Twitter, on the Instagram, and sign up for the newsletter. Go to the website, sign up for the newsletter. If you need somebody for speaking events, if you need somebody for guest blogging, hit me up. Hit me up, Tommy at blendingfamily.com. There we go. All right, here's how we end the show for those of you listening for the first time. Again, episode 165, and as Terry Crews would say, your success is my success. Please, for the love of Pete, whoever Pete is, somebody send me a chair. Saying good stuff, and I haven't hit record, so now I have to hit record because now you're saying funny stuff, and
this one will be funny enough. Don't worry.
I know.
How does our sound on our end?
Sounds great. How about on my end?
Sounds good.
How about the voices in my head? How do they sound?
They sound great, but not anything compared. It's hard for me to hear your voices because my voice is sort of override it all. So
they drowned them out.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I only care about myself. So.
Now I get it. I see why you two are divorced.
All right, your earphones okay?
Yeah,
headphones.
They're good.
Earphones. I don't know if you have a producer and engineer who you do post on.
No, I'm it.
You're it. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I can record. I've done it for people who care about. I'm not. You don't care because it sounds like you can do it by yourself. But I can record the audio on my end.
Yeah.
So it's a different channel, but you're good.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, I think we sound great, especially when you turn off the video. Well, because the video takes a bandwidth. That's why.
It does.
Oh,
yep.
I thought you were just saying because we were ugly or something.
No.
Who would say that, Nikki? Who would ever say that?
He would say that. He might say it.
We're really excited to have this opportunity. Thank you for having us on. We love what you guys do.
Well, thank you. I just want to start off with the two of you because I feel that you represent the world when it comes to co-parenting and doing co-parenting right. So if I said, if it was a meme, you two would be that meme of what co-parenting should be. And I want you to represent it as I apologize because I've always felt that the way you two have created the positive co-parenting, a lot of us, and I'm going to say it's a majority of us, look at you as you two are nuts. Because that is not how you're supposed to co-parent. The way you co-parent in divorce is you hate each other. You have to go through years of litigation. You badmouth each other in front of your kids. That's how you do it. That's right. As the kids would say right now, Ben and Nikki, that's America. That's America. That's how you divorce.
Sure.
Right. And that's, that's how my parents divorced. And quite frankly, that's all I knew. But like we can get into it, but to us, co-parenting means different things. I mean, and it's sort of a buzzword that either industry people use or, sort of maybe sometimes a sheep in wolf's clothes or no. Wolf in sheep clothes.
Backwards.
So we're the co-parenting experts, or whatever, and sometimes we're going to teach you how to get along by not getting along.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's talk about that, Nikki. How do you go from not able to sustain a marriage, don't want to be in the same household to, oh my gosh, you two have co-written a book, you are speaking, you're doing radio interviews, you're doing, talk show interviews. What went right?
I think taking time and not trying to do it so quickly. And really, to be honest, the two of us, when we first started trying to put our relationship back together, our main goal was only to be able to tolerate each other, to be in the same room with each other that way. We had no idea that we'd come to where we are today. So
Yeah.
that's just me being completely honest about this. I mean, we surpassed everything that we would have thought would have been okay for us.
Yeah, if you had shown us the meme you were talking about that we were the poster childs for 13 years ago, we would have laughed at you. It would have been so far beyond our wildest imaginations. And I think where we went right, and I think where most go wrong, is at the beginning. And nobody comes into a divorce or ends a marriage on a winning streak.
Right.
There's some deep-rooted emotional, mental, in some cases, physical, damage. And there's, under any circumstances, no decision should be made. Major life decisions, much less decisions, should be made in that space. And so what Nikki and I were able to do was, on our own, through therapy and, some of the other outlets that I had, was clean up the wreckage from the past and realize that we can never move forward. And who knows how it's going to look, but we could one thing for sure we knew is we could not move forward unless we took accountability and forgave from the beginning. So that was the foundation of what we have today.
Was that because of what you were just saying, Ben? Was that because the two of you were going through? Now, was this when you were going through therapy? Was it during the marriage or post?
Well, we were in couples therapy, as I think, the divorce also doesn't just happen. The talk of it isn't just one day we're getting divorced and it's over. I think it starts with, in most cases, well, in our case anyways, it started with, okay, we need to go to couples therapy. We would split up and then we get back together. And it was sort of this rocky road in and out for a while. But, Nikki was going to therapy. I was going to therapy along with some 12-step program that I'm in. And it was one of those things that we both realized that we had to do, not necessarily in the beginning for me, that I wasn't this spiritual giant that was talking about forgiveness and accountability and,
my laugh. Sorry.
No, but it's true. I mean, I was an angry, resentful, bitter, that person that was going to send this divorce south because I was making decisions, holier than now decisions. This marriage, Nikki was the villain, and Nikki had to be the villain because that relieved me of any culpability. And so through a process of, and the crazy thing is in our story is my parents had the exact divorce that I was heading down, even though I had already gone through that and knew what damage it caused to the kids to be in the middle of their parents' divorce. And yet and that shows you the power of resentment and anger and all these negative feelings that blindly I was going to repeat the same mistakes as my parents.
And I think for me, sorry.
Go ahead, Nikki. Go ahead.
I think for me, I came at it the complete opposite way, where I come from parents that are still married 52 years later, that I came at it as, what can I do to fix this?
Right.
What can I do to fix this problem? Whether it was trying to stay together and then, quickly realizing, what, that's not the case. This is not going to work. It would be worse for us to be together than it would be apart. So I sort of tried to sit back a little bit and let him go through whatever it was he needed to go through. I mean, I kind of had an idea what he was going through and how he was trying to take our divorce, but it was easier for me to kind of sit back and just try to see if it played out a different way, and actually pray that it played out a different way.
And the thing is that I had this, I call it moment of clarity, but for the first time I had hired this lawyer and he wrote up this big game plan, action plan on how we were going to attack Nikki, because that's what I wanted to do. And he was gladly going to be my best friend and partner in crime and, have an annuity for the next 2 years or however long, fighting this thing. But I read this piece of, this game plan on a plane, and I only read 2 pages of it. And then all of a sudden it hit me. And all of a sudden, for the first time in many years, I got real with myself. And I was able to see things for what they were. And at that point, I landed. Monday, I called my lawyer and said that I wanted to find a different route. Could he send me the balance of my retainer back? And conveniently, I got $175, $200 back out of a very big retainer. But the next call was to Nikki. And I said, Nikki, I need some time. Obviously we still have to deal with Asher and, the drop-offs and the whole parenting thing. But before we go down this divorce process, I need some time to work on myself because I'm in no place to make positive outcome decisions.
Well, I want to pause right there because as you're talking, Ben, it reminds me of when I went through my divorce, and my former spouse told me on a Sunday she wanted a divorce, and that next day, that Monday morning, I was on a business trip, and by Wednesday I already had the divorce papers. And I really wish I had my moment of clarity somewhere between the taxi picking me up Monday morning and landing, and knowing that the papers were coming, because I signed them, and I really wish I had never signed them, because it ended up becoming, a battle.
Yeah.
And, again, like when you first get married, you think until death do us part, and it doesn't work out that way. And so you're not really expecting to, marry, divorce. You're expecting to, stay married. But again, I really wish I had that moment of clarity to say, don't sign these papers yet. Take time, seek, an attorney or somebody. And I didn't.
And that's the, where Nikki and I now, as we write this book, figured that I think is the rule. And then obviously our situation is the exception, but there is a sea change happening. And I think there's more, it's more solution oriented, but divorce, unlike maybe a civil trial or a criminal trial or other, things we see in court, have to deal with so many emotions. And emotions,
right.
when you bring emotions into a divorce, which quite frankly is a business deal. And I don't mean to sound apathetic about it, but at the end of the day, if you bring any sort of emotion into selling a house, into a business deal, it's a problem. So, I think what happens is people get into the process too quickly. They don't take time. And then they could, like me, and this isn't the lawyer's fault because I went out searching for him, but they hire the wrong person. They make decisions based on fear or whatever, and they just don't take the time to heal and the time to work out some of their issues in order to move forward and make this, quote unquote business decision or, see clearly. And so I don't, that's where we're really focused on right now is what can we do? And I hate using this analogy, but it's probably the only thing I remember from college in a public health course. But, if I'm sitting at the bottom of a river and I see somebody drowning, I'm going to jump in and save them. And I'm pulling to shore. And then I see 2 people and I'm going to come down, I'm going to jump in and save them. And then 5. And I can only jump in and save so many. And then 10. And the numbers keep on growing. And eventually I'm not going to be able to jump and save anybody because I'm going to be too tired. I'm going to kill myself. At some point, as a rational human being, I might think to myself, let me go up the river to figure out why all these people are coming down and drowning at the bottom. And I think that, part of the process of this whole co-parenting, this whole great movement that's shifting is we're not dealing with the things that need to be dealt with in the beginning in order to at least set a foundation for a better outcome. That doesn't mean that, even houses with good foundations get wiped out during storms, but it has to be built on a strong foundation. And I'm going to climb off my soapbox right now.
No, stay up there. It's good.
Yeah, I mean that's just where I hear your story and I hear a lot of other stories, and they're made from. And I almost went down to 2. Is when you're hurt and you're either you feel slighted or you slighted and she feels slighted, whatever it is. And we don't talk about a lot in the book. So people who are looking for what happened, who's the bad guy. There is no bad guy. There's no villain in this story. That's why I would never make a great Hollywood script, right? But all that stuff doesn't matter because we were able to put it behind us. Who did what or who didn't do who did what or who didn't do anything. It didn't matter. What mattered was how we were going to move forward and how we were going to clean up that wreckage of the past.
Nikki, when Ben was talking about how he called you, was that moment on the phone with him, did that feel that it was going to be all right, that even though the two of you are going through a divorce, that maybe Ben is now looking at the big picture a different way, a different angle. So when he's on the phone with you, what's going through your mind?
I think first and foremost, I was scared to death.
Why is he calling me?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like I didn't.
Why is he being so nice?
Like we'd talk here and there, but it wasn't always like. I mean, every once in a while, but we didn't really talk that much. It was more or less talking about, when each one of us was going to be with our child, when we're going to drop him off, and because we started this by doing just like the same thing that most couples do, is just like the drop off where you barely talk to each other, you don't really want to see each other. So I think when he called me, I was kind of shocked and taken back.
Right.
But I kind of could sense in the tone of his voice that it was a different sort of call and a different sort of meeting that kind of made me a little less afraid.
Hopeful.
A little more hopeful,
right.
A little less afraid. I mean, don't get me wrong. The whole way driving to Starbucks, I was sweating bullets and like scared to death on where we were going to go from there. But it was, it was something that needed to be done. And, for two very hard-headed people, for us to actually sit there and look at each other and genuinely put the past in the past and just say, you know what, we don't really care what happened. We don't care, because there were so many things that brought us to the place that we were at that moment that didn't really matter. What mattered was we genuinely said, you know what, I'm sorry. And I'm sorry meant everything, I think, at that moment to the two of us, considering I don't say it very often. But
true.
We still don't say it very often.
No, we don't. We don't, but we said it the most important part.
At the most important part, we said it.
One of the things I really enjoyed is the interview with Asher. And
on Hello Divorce?
On Hello Divorce.
Aaron did a great job.
And one of the things he was talking about, I believe he was 3 when the two of you were going through your divorce. And it brings up an interesting point of telling them that, mommy and daddy are no longer going to be living together. Can you two talk about that as far as, number one, helping, other families when it comes to having that discussion? And again, in the interview, Asher said he really didn't remember a lot. He remembered the boxes, but what can we do to help our kids even after the divorce, even after the separation of going from one house to now 2 houses?
Well, I think for me, I have 2 Asher stories. So my number one thing that I will tell all parents to discuss with their children, no matter what age they are. I mean, I mean, he was 3.5, 4 years old. Kids are so smart. I mean, beyond smart, that you have to be honest with your children. Like we tried in the beginning, the whole, oh, Ben would leave at night when he'd go to sleep and then come over in the morning before he would wake up for school. Wouldn't you know, this child walks into my room one morning. He looks at me, he looks at the bed, and he says, "Where'd Daddy sleep last night?" Because he realized at that age that the bed wasn't messed up on both sides.
Mm.
So for us, we were, we thought we had this whole thing planned and we were doing such a great thing. And, we weren't ready to tell him yet, but Ben was still in the house. He was still there and he would come back in the morning. And this child looked at me and was like, "Hey, like, you're not pulling anything over on me."
Busted.
Totally busted.
Completely busted. He completely busted. And I was like, you know what? What are we doing? Like, we need to just be honest with ourselves and our child and have this conversation with them.
Yeah. And I also think and we were part of this thought process that I think is complete. I'll just say BS because I don't know what the swearing situation.
You can drop F-bombs. No worries.
It's complete bullshit that, we tell ourselves that our kids are resilient. I don't know if you've heard that before, but I know that, I've heard it and I've said it as a parent.
And they always say, you know what, if it happens when they're young,
they'll get over it.
Whatever. Oh, they do.
Yeah, and I am a perfect example of that. My parents were divorced
What's the line you used about poison all the time?
Oh, yeah. It's like, it becomes high conflict divorce is like
drinking poison and having
yeah, exactly.
Yes, that's Ben's favorite line.
Exactly. And that's what it was like. So the idea that they're resilient or they'll get over it, it's truly just I look at it as justification for your own behaviors, and trying to tell yourself that your behaviors are okay. But one thing besides telling Asher, I think we were committed to was making sure, as crazy as it sounds, that his life didn't skip a beat as much as possible and make it as normal as possible considering the circumstances. So what that looked like was sort of the motto of our happy divorce is what's best for Asher. Like when we made decisions from the very beginning, there's a pretty simple equation that we're all taught in school, and that's 2 + 2 = 4. And when you have 3 people involved on a decision, there could be 3 different answers to that equation. But for us, it had to equal 4 for Asher. If that's from financial to custody, even today,
mm-hmm.
In the beginning, there were some answers to that equation that seemed like 1,000 to me, but they clearly equaled 4 for Asher. So that's the one that we went with. And again, just like anything else, you can justify, why it should equal 4 for him. But I think if you really are honest with yourself, or we were honest with ourselves, and we got to that point where we just wanted to make it normal for him, and normal in an abnormal, terrible situation, because at the end of the day, obviously it's not the kid's choice. They don't understand the intricacies of it, especially at 3 years old, 4 years old. I didn't at 12 years old. But, the idea is we ended our vows to each other. There was some shame in that. We forgave ourselves for that. But at the end of the day, we tried not to break our vows to Asher as parents. Just because we weren't going to be together, we couldn't stop being parents.
What's the distance between where the two of you live?
7 houses.
So that is so wonderful, because I remember years and years ago, I was watching the History Channel, and they did a thing with Tim Conway, and Tim Conway was talking about when he was going through his divorce, that there was a house like down the street, and he bought that house because he wanted to be still close to his kids. His kids mattered so much. And that story so resonated with me. When I went through my divorce, I did the same thing. I found a townhome.
Oh, that's great.
It was only a mile away from where my son lived with his mom, and I I I don't know. I kid about, you know, looking at life through rose-colored glasses and unicorns pooping Skittles. But I really believe, again, what the two of you are doing is actually re-engineering what co-parenting, what divorce should be. And I think right there, living close by each other is so huge because, again, like you were saying, Ben, the two of you were trying to make Asher's life as normal as possible. It's not going to work out if the child has one parent in one state and another parent in another state. So I really commend,
Right.
the two of you of putting Asher in the forefront.
Right. And that's, again, the evolution of our happy divorce that I think it's important that we keep on reemphasizing is we didn't have this coffee shop meeting and go through this pretty, for a bad process, pretty easy, considering what most people go through of the divorce, to living 7 houses apart. Right. I mean, I've had 3 houses, I think, since we've been 4. Since we've been divorced, and some were across town and some of them, and then my wife and I decided we wanted to live on the water, and I was away one weekend, and I get a call from Nikki, and she said, "I bought you a lot," and I said, Nikki, what?
I actually bought the lot for us to hold on to as like an investment.
Well, that was the fun. I said, Nikki, what happens if I don't want the lot? And she said, we will do it as an investment because that's what we were planning on doing. So we built the house, and now Asher and my kids, for that matter, much to the dismay probably sometimes of Nikki and Chad, because they're a little overbearing because they're 4 and 7, and they don't understand boundaries that well. But Asher can go between houses. We call it, the name of the street we live on is Longfellow, and we call him the Longfellow Creeper. Because he
shows up.
He just shows up. I mean, like last night, he scared the living hell out of me. The door opened at 10 o'clock, but he just shows up. And there's also times where he'll call and say, can I stay at mom's, or even though it's my day, or vice versa. And does that 2 + 2 = 4 even today for me to hear that? No, but we're still committed today to what's best for Asher. And if he wants to stay with his mom an extra day for whatever reason, then that's okay. We don't count days. We don't go on the calendar and say, well, you had him 17 days last week or last month. I want him 17 days. It works out. It's always worked out.
I want to, I don't know if you're open to this advice, but I'm going to give you a little bit of advice.
Yeah.
But it's a different situation. So my son and Asher are around the same age. My son is just a few months older than Asher. And the kid is a working machine. He literally works 7 days a week. And unfortunately, because of that, we don't see him as often. So I'm going to warn you, if Asher starts working, which is a good thing, you might not see him as much. And I don't really mean to joke about it, but it was something that, when you're putting your, parenting agreement together, that was something I never thought of. Oh my gosh, my kid's working. Hold on, I'm losing out on weekends. And so when you're talking about 2 + 2 in that situation, Ben, you are losing out, but because of what the two of you created, you get it. There's no bitterness going, like you were saying, we're not counting the days. And
right. And Asher turned 16. I think we lost him to not necessarily to working, but to other friends, because I think even before that, I think once they become a teenager, you go for sort of from and this is just parenting in general, right? You go from
being the coolest parents ever
to knowing everything, to wanting to learn, to him being a sponge and listening to us absolutely knowing nothing, and for all intents and purposes becoming Uber drivers.
Right.
And so,
it's dumb and we don't know anything.
Right. So we've had to battle through that as a teenage that really, like you said, was never even in consideration, that one day, even before he goes to college, that he's going to rather do something else than, lay on the couch and, hang out with us, or go on a fishing trip with me, or, go to LA with Nikki, or whatever it is. I mean, it's just at some point they become teenagers and you're not a cool parent anymore.
Right. Totally.
Well, for the record, I don't think I ever was, but
Yeah, but we probably weren't either. We probably just thought
I
we were.
totally was cool.
Yeah. She's still in denial.
Duh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I was. No, probably not. Maybe to other people's children, just not my own.
Oh, well, there you go. So technically you were the cool parent.
The cool parent.
Like Izzy thinks I'm cool. Ben's daughter thinks I'm cool, but Asher probably never did.
No, yeah, and Izzy thinks you're cool because one thing is they all call her Coco, and they're all, Izzy was the funniest because my kids don't quite get it about the divorce, but they see that Asher has 2 dads and 2 moms, and Izzy, my daughter, at like 4, said, I want 2 moms. And
we're like, most people don't wish for 2 moms.
Right. And so I think at the time there, she started calling you her stepmom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think sometimes she still does.
Right. And so, but the other part was Nikki, I think, always wanted a daughter too. So she gets sort of get to be, maybe the aunt role is a better word.
The cool aunt.
Yeah, because I still get to give her back.
The cool aunt.
You get to give her back. That's true. You get to spoil the hell out of her. You don't have to
and give her back.
Right. You don't have to worry about parenting. You're just you get to be the good guy.
Say yes.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the remarriage. Yeah. So with Nadia and Chad, what kind of conversation do the 4 of you sit down and say, especially from your point of view, Ben and Nikki, that this is how we want to raise Asher. This is how we want to raise our family. Nadia, Chad, welcome to the family. How does that conversation even start? And the follow-up is, how do Nadia and Chad get along?
I have a really quick little story to interject here before we discuss that. It's another Asher story where it's about how smart children are. So when Ben started dating Nadia, and Nadia was spending a lot more time with the 2 of them, I would always call him at night when he wasn't at my house to say goodnight to him.
Mm-hmm.
So one night he says to me, "Hey, Mom, do you know Nadia?" And I said, "I have not had a chance to meet Nadia yet." I'm like, "I'm sure I will sometime soon." And he said, "Well, here, I think you need to talk to her."
And handed the phone to her.
Handed her the phone. So that was his way of saying, "Hey, Mom, there's this lady that I'm spending time with.
Important to my dad.
It's important to my dad, and you don't know her, but obviously you should."
And it's time almost.
Like, it's time. He was like, what do you say he was, 5?
Yeah, he was 5.
Yeah, and he was like, "You know what? It's time for you 2 to know each other, because I do, Dad does. Why don't you?"
Yeah, and like I talked about the landmines through the field of divorce, even after the divorce, there's some serious landmines. And I think the biggest one is bringing new partners into the equation. And Nikki and I had created a pretty easier to ride bike, because it was just 2 of us. It was 2 wheels. You now throw 4 people into it, and there are 4 wheels, and all of them have to work together. And it was clear from the start that, well, first of all, Nikki and I knew Chad while we were married. He was, around the family, friends of the family, and they started, dating after we got married. And so that was sort of a test right off the bat about this new what's best for Asher. And swallow the ego and, put on your big boy pants.
Right.
And so, the story that I knew about Chad, or the story that told me that he got what we were trying to accomplish, was he called me to ask me to coffee, and
same coffee shop,
same table outside. I don't know if I did that on purpose, maybe subliminally or something, but he asked if it was okay if he married Nikki and became part of this family.
Wow.
And despite my hardest attempts to, tell him why that was a huge mistake for him,
it was crazy.
He was like, at the end of the day, he was going to do it anyways, right? But what it showed me in that moment is that he understood what Nikki and I were trying to accomplish. He was going to come in and be a wheel that works, not a cog in the wheel.
Right.
And at that point, first of all, there was nothing, even my most biggest denial in the world couldn't buy any other story that he's a good guy, that he's great for Nikki, and thus in turn great for my son. And I said, of course. And so, and then with Nadia, one thing that's important that we avoided the landmine of the dating thing and the ego is Nikki had asked me, she knew what I was up to, and that I was,
that man that gets divorced and just wants to date anything by the name of Mercedes or Diamond.
Right. Exactly. Right. So she knew I was going out and sowing whatever, proverbial wild oats, but the thing is, she called me one day and she said, you know what, I think it's not a great idea for you to, bring anybody around Asher until you're sure. At least that you're sure that there's something more than just, a fling or a short-term relationship, that there's a future. And, I have to tell you, my first reaction was, who the hell are you to tell me who I can and can't bring around my son?
Really? That was your first reaction? Not shut the
right? No, that was.
Yeah.
That was.
Yeah.
I mean, right. It was like, who the hell are you?
Knew I was right, though.
But, when I took back and had a little restraint of tongue and really like had that conversation about me, we say it a lot, but what's best for Asher, right? And that she was absolutely right. He's already been damaged about what marriage means and what, the idea of marriage, even though his parents get along, it will never be a kid's choice for their parents to get divorced.
Right.
And so having a revolving door of women in his dad's life, which then in turn is in his life, is not going to help his image or, his story behind what a relationship is. So she was right. So I told her, yes, I will do that. And it was a year at least before I introduced Asher to Nadia.
Did I read, Nikki, didn't Chad ask Asher permission to marry you?
He did, because Asher actually was the one that asked me to marry Chad.
Oh, okay.
The two of them together. I mean, but Asher Asher brought me the ring and he said, "Hey, Mom, will you marry Chad?" And I was like, I mean, how am I going to say no to that?
Yeah, what a cop out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the partners that we're with, and we've always kind of struggled on how to explain it, because it kind of sounds apathetic when we say buy-in, but they are as committed to this happy divorce, this thing that we've created, as we are.
But I also think we wouldn't have allowed two people to come in that weren't going to be as committed as we are, that came in. We weren't going to let two people come in like bulldozers trying to make a wreckage of what we were trying to make.
Right. And that's, sometimes, and again, another landmine, somebody brings in a person that, causes more damage or, more toxicity to an already toxic environment. And if I had felt that from Nadia, I couldn't walk away from my commitment or the consequence that I had made by marrying Nikki and having Asher for somebody else. And so, again, my role as Asher's parent, it can never stop, whether it's a new person in his life or, whatever it is. So that's, I think the introduction of somebody new and, the swallowing of the egos that Nikki and I had to do, because even today, 13 years later, Nikki and Chad got a place in the Keys to go down for mini lobster seas. And Asher and I, a big thing we like to do is fish together. So when I heard, this was 4 years ago, they did for the first time, that Chad was taking Asher fishing and lobster, mini lobster season, my first reaction was a gut punch.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, it's still 13 years later, it's still hard and difficult to just, the first reaction is ego. Like, oh, that's our thing. Like, here's another dude doing our thing. But the time it gets easier and easier to, allow. I'm sure Nikki goes through the same thing,
right.
With Nadia, and some of the things that, if Nadia talks to Asher, or they'd go do something, or just putting him to bed, or what, I'm sure that she goes through that same thing too.
Well, the gut punch for me was when I found out that my ex-wife's husband was teaching our son how to ride a bike. And I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That's a dad thing. I'm sorry. That's a dad thing. And that's where you have to step aside and go, well, that's okay. That means he's a good man. It means he is embracing, he doesn't have any kids. So he's embracing, that fatherly role,
Mm-hmm.
but it still hurts.
Especially like those life moments, right? I mean, it's yeah. I mean, I could see it, but good on you for being able to take a step back and realizing that, hey, your kid's gonna learn to ride a bike. Maybe get the maybe he'll learn faster, because I know when I try to teach my daughter to ride a bike, and the difference between a son and a daughter are completely different. And I get so frustrated. So if somebody else were to do that role, great, do it. And then when they get to learn to ride a bike, once they learn to ride a bike, let's go bike riding. So,
oh my God. That's
I was looking for it and I couldn't find it, but didn't you two were starting to try a little hashtag movement about celebrating your exes?
Yes.
We would love everybody's listening. And again, it doesn't have to be marriage. It doesn't have to be my ex, my friend. Hashtag my ex, my friend. And again, it doesn't have to be this ridiculous story of Nick and I, or we are trying to, co-parenting, like we started off the show, has many different looks. It has many, but if you can, have a good enough relationship where you have shielded your kids from your crappy decisions and the consequences of your decisions, then that's a happy divorce, and that's a good co-parenting thing. And so if that's the case, take a picture of your ex, take it with it together, and would love to see it on social media of my ex, my friend, because we know through this whole process, and we knew, but when we were writing the book, that we are not the only ones that have a good outcome of their divorce, and how ending our marriage was probably the best thing for both of Nikki and I personally, and the growth that happened because of it. And I still get her in my life, unfortunately.
Even when he doesn't want me.
85% of the time, I'm happy I have her in my life. It's the other 15.
Yeah. Well, the two of you bring up, because I've seen on your Instagram talking about, family dinners. One of my past guests, Erika Englund, her and her former husband do what's called Familyversary, which is the day the two of them got married, and because of that marriage had, created their kids.
That's
And
very cute.
it is. And it's again, this is why I'm so intrigued by, what Erika Englund does, what two of you are doing. you really are flipping the script when it comes to the world of divorce and, with our kids and being, I guess the better way to say it is you're actually being adults about it.
Yeah, we do. I mean, not to toot our own horn, but we do use the expression quite a bit of we put our big boy pants on, right? And look, I don't judge people because I'm not this angel spiritual giant who left the house in the most dramatic, embarrassing way I could possibly imagine. When I think about it, it makes me cringe. But I took off my ring. I took a picture of Nikki and I ripped it up and I put it on the front counter.
It really was a little traumatic.
I mean, it was
something I would have done.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a little, so I had left the house in this, so I understand where it goes. I understand how it can, and then you get, people around you and your team around you who are sort of, feeding you, BS that you want to hear. And so I get where that comes from, and I understand where this can go wrong. But at the end of the day, it truly is. It was about our kids, and it has to be.
Do you two still have your wedding rings?
That is
I do.
Good question. You do?
I'm surprised he hasn't asked for it back.
Yeah, can I have it back to pawn it? Would you make it into something?
No,
knowing you?
I was keeping it fresher.
Oh, yeah, that's good. You know what? I might. It's crazy how many things.
No, I did not make it into something else.
You know what? I probably do. Because I actually found.
I might have yours.
I keep everything. I mean, I found, and Nikki found it too. When we met for the first time, I gave her my business card and she gave me hers. And I still have, for some reason, have that business card. And I think you still have mine.
I do.
So yeah, we probably still have our wedding rings, our friend rings, now. I think the one thing that Nikki and I did, that some people do, I don't know if everybody does, but we got the idea of being in love and loving each other completely mixed up. And we went through every red light, stop sign, train track, red flag, whatever you want to say there is that was put in front of us, even up to the day and immediately following our wedding. We just went right through it. And that was, where we went wrong and didn't put our big boy pants on, but again, would never change it for the end, end of the world. But, we just hope that people, through stories like Erika, I think her name was, and ours, and other people who are professionals in mediation and collaborative and, divorce coaches, that we can make people realize that there's another way. Like, you don't have to damage your kids. You don't have to walk around and ultimately then damage yourself, because you have to walk around with this toxicity and this issue. I was talking to a guy the other day who was divorced around the same time Nikki and I were, and he's been divorced for 11 years, but still has to probably have to go to court about 3 or 4 times a year to fight motions or whatever it is that his ex throws upon him. And each motion is like $6,000 he has to pay his lawyer. And I said, how much do you have into this thing? And he said, and he's not a super wealthy guy, and he probably said about $400,000.
Oh my word!
Oh my gosh!
And crazy.
And it's just, crazy. And so
that's such a waste of money.
It is a total waste of money, and that's money that should go to their kids. And you can but that
could pay for all their colleges.
No question, right? And so there's just another way. And we truly believe, and this isn't about ego, but we truly believe, and the more that anybody gets to know us, I think the people who know us best are actually the most surprised that we were able to do it. But, to Class A alphas, but if we were able to pull this off, there shouldn't really be anybody else's excuse why they can't do it, and again, it doesn't have to be as crazy as Nikki and mine, or as absurd, or living 7 houses down, or family vacations, or like, Erika with her family dinners, which we have too. It doesn't have to be that extreme, but it just, it's about being happy in life. And you can either be happy or you can be miserable. You can either, screw up your kids.
Your kids are happy.
Right. You can either screw up your kids or you can't.
Well, again, the way, similar situation with you, Ben. I mean, my parents divorced when I was really young.
Mm.
And I always remember my mom saying to me after I went through my divorce, she said that it took her and my dad about 10 years before the two of them could have a civil conversation. And she kept, reminding me, is that the life you want? And ironically, on July 3rd, my former spouse and I had to meet up downtown Denver because our son was doing his senior pictures down there, and a breakthrough happened. We actually talked. We actually just
That's great.
and she sent me an email later on saying how important that was, that we had a good day where we were together as a family, and it just reminded me again of what divorce should not be. It shouldn't be the ugliness. It should be, you know, okay, we weren't good married to each other, but we have kids out of this. Let's do what's best for the kids. Let's be conversationalists in front of our kids. Let's not necessarily putting on a fake front, but
Right.
let's start building something. And so after she sent me that email, I responded back to her saying, it was a great day. And I think this is a growth for both of us. And granted, it was 2008. So 12 years. It took us 12 years to have a civil conversation.
Well, hold on to that win. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what Nikki and the false front you say, and I will make no bones about it. That Nikki and I, in the beginning, faked it until we made it, and we did at times put on a false front. Especially when I would walk off the baseball field after coaching Asher, and Asher would run over to Nikki and Chad and hug on Chad. And then I would slowly, saunter over there and give Chad a hug and say hi and, make Asher feel like, it's all right. And meanwhile, my insides are, tearing each other apart.
Right.
So the false front for Nikki and I was important because at least we were just going through the motions, right? And we say faking until we made it, but when it was authentic and it was real, like that moment you had with your ex, like that was a win. And we held on to those wins. And then we said, you know what? That wasn't that bad. Let's try going on vacation. I remember the first time we went on vacation together, it was a complete shit show. And it was terrible. It was awful. We went to Montana and Nadia came and something happened. I forgot what it was, but it was too early. Like I think Nikki said something like, "We're never going to do this again. This was a mistake." And yet we didn't give up. And then
we tried it again, and that one was great.
Right, and then we just kept on, trying it, and then but then what I guess the point is, it became more authentic and became more real, and even the ones that weren't faking were clear compared to the ones where we were faking, but we held on to the wins. And just like you and your ex, had that win, no matter if it took 12 years or 20 years or 2 months, it doesn't matter. That's a win, and that's a step in the right direction.
And Bessie and Oreo, they get along together as well?
Yeah. No. Oreo and Beastie. Beastie.
Oh, they're like boyfriend, girlfriend.
Okay.
Beatrice is the hamster. That isn't that Beatrice the hamster? I don't even know what kind of animal. It's so stupid.
Yes, that's a hamster.
Yeah, that's a hamster. My daughter. But yeah, Beastie and Oreo get along. The dogs get along great. Everybody gets along great. I'm not sure that there's anybody who, doesn't. Nikki's dad. I am so lucky to have him still in my life. He called my mom. I was born and raised in San Francisco. My whole family's in San Francisco, and
49ers fan.
Born and raised, a true 49er fan. I think I freaked out Nikki a little bit when we met, because my license plate in California lets you have a heart, of course, right? But it was Heart DEM 9RZ. So love dem Niners.
I should have run that.
You should have run that. But he called my mom, and this was when, who knows which way this was going to go, right? There was no, this was probably in the beginning when it was going to, it wasn't looking good for our happy divorce. But he called my mom and said, I want you to know that no matter what happens, I will always look out for Ben and make sure he's okay in Tampa. And so what a win for me that this man that's taught me so much about life and so much about business and gave me my first chance in business and gave me startup money to start my first company. And I still get to have him in my life. I mean, there's so many, beautiful benefits to this besides ultimately our son. And I think that's the selfless nature of life, right? When you put yourself, others in front of you and you're doing it for the real reasons, you actually get something in return. And what the gifts that we've gotten, Nikki and my mom didn't have the best relationship, to say it mildly. But now I think they have a great, relationship, a relationship that's at least built on respect. And there's not this toxicity.
There's not the animosity that may have been there before.
Yeah. I mean, Nikki goes to LA a couple weeks ago with Asher. And she calls my mom, Nikki, and says, you want to come down to see, because, my mom's going crazy because she hasn't seen her grandkids in Florida for, 5 months because of the COVID thing. And that's what my mom lives for. And Nikki knew that. So she called, my mom and said, we're down in LA. If you want to come down, drive down and see Asher, I'm sure you would love it. So it sort of has sprinkled out through my parents also, I'm not, claiming it's because of our relationship.
You can,
but I'm not exactly.
Helped a little. Well,
it might have helped, but I think that actually they were becoming, because you and I are still married when Dad divorced Diane. It's like, so, but my mom and dad now are best friends. Now, part of me is a little resentful at it. Like, why couldn't you jerks figure this out
a long time ago? Yeah.
30 something years ago or whatever, but whatever. It is what it is. It's still nice now when I go home that I have a Christmas, at 40 something years old, that I still recognize how great it is to have my mom and dad together in a room, having Christmas dinner or Thanksgiving dinner, whatever it is, whatever, big family. And there's not this, ugliness, and it's great to see.
So I want to thank the two of you for your time. I want to thank you again, because I feel that you represent the goodness of divorce and the goodness of co-parenting. Before we talk about how to get the book, my last question to both of you is, what has changed in your lives the past 12 months? We'll start with Nikki.
Past 12 months. Well, I can tell you, for the past 4 months, I mean, we have only quarantined with each other. So I think the past, 4 months going through this together, we have actually all grown even closer than we were before, which I think for a lot of relationships, it's been going the opposite direction.
Yes.
But for us, I think that it's actually made our relationship a lot better. And I think too, it's, we've had to make some really tough, hard decisions with the 16-year-old. And we have to be both on the same page with this because, we're trying to protect him because so many 16-year-olds don't think it matters to them because they're 16 and, the thought was, if they get this virus or whatever, they're going to be fine. But it's hard to just, when a 16-year-old's friends are all allowed to do whatever they want to do, whenever they want to do it, even during this time, we've had to stand really stern and on each other's sides to try to protect all of us the best that we can. And that's been a little difficult with the 16-year-old.
Yeah, it sure has. For me, the past 12 months has been a regression for me. I found myself, talk about the irony of the whole situation. But the other day, Nikki Nadia and my mom sort of pulled the covers off of Ben, and I had been slipping into some behaviors that, quite frankly, were one of the reasons that when I apologized to Nikki about the end of our marriage, I had been going down that same path, and I've been getting off the path. The other path is what's the unhealthy part, and I have a tendency to be reclusive and to go into my hole, and to go into my hole and lock the door. And I was being avoidant. I was staying at the office until 7:30, and then showing up right before the kids were going to bed. So I think everybody sort of dealt with this COVID thing their own. They all have their sort of cross to bear. For me, it sort of put Miracle-Gro on my character defects. But I have women in my life who love me, who have the courage, to somebody who probably is not the most approachable, to stand up and to call me out on my own BS. And luckily I was at least willing to hear it, and hear them. And at some point I can no longer, and I talk about this in the book with Nikki, is that I can no longer continue to buy my own bullshit, about justification of working and so, the COVID thing, and I got to get this thing started and whatever I was working on. But, also the thing about the teenager, is that it's so funny because he said this the other day, that we're known as the
strict
One parents. We're the strict parents who don't let Asher do anything, and very, because we're protective of him, because we take this, thing very seriously. And, some of Asher's friends' parents don't.
Or it seems that way if their kids are allowed to go out and do whatever they want.
So just like if we had friends who we didn't feel like were being serious about this, then they wouldn't be, in our lives right now. They wouldn't come over. They wouldn't even, even if we're outside social distancing, because, my wife and I have underlying health conditions. Nikki's best friend's living with them. He is a cancer survivor. And so we are a family unit, who spend a lot of time together. Another joy, which Nikki alluded to, of our happy divorce is we were able to quarantine together, because at the beginning, just sort of like everything else in life, Nikki and I talked. We actually communicated on the phone, which we, I hate to go back, but I forgot I wanted to make this point, was when Nikki and I got divorced, she said, when I called her and said I needed time, there was text messaging back then, but we weren't as reliant on it.
Right.
And so Nikki and I talked on the phone a lot. And Nikki said something that I wanted to just mention about the tone in my voice. She could hear the tone of my voice. And I think with emails and texts, you can, the problem with them sometimes is you add your own tone of how you perceive that person. So Nikki and I get on the phone a lot, even today. Yeah, we text. Usually when we're fighting, we text.
Yeah.
And then after the third FU, I stop the communication. And then I wait a couple of days until she texts me back, and then I know she was sorry. Or I'll text her, and then that's sort of code word for I'm sorry or she's sorry or whatever. But so in the beginning of the thing, we got on the phone, we communicated, we came up with a plan, and the plan was Asher was going to go in between houses. All of us were going to shut it down. Not Nikki's husband is essential. The essential of essentials. He's the Hillsborough Sheriff County sheriff. And so, that was the one thing that was going to be the person going out and obviously having to do his job. But besides that, what that enabled us to do, because we lived 7 houses down, is we were all able to quarantine together and have family dinners and do, and keep life sort of as normal as possible when it was the furthest thing from normal. So another positive for our happy divorce and for communication in general.
How can people get that brilliant book?
Anywhere books are sold, I believe. I know for sure Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. They can go to Mascot Books, which is our publisher, .com. Or you can reach out. Look, if you can't afford one or you're going through a hard divorce, just everything at Our Happy Divorce social media. Our website is ourhappydivorce.com. just reach out to us on direct message and we'll get you a book. This was never a money-making opportunity for Nikki and I. We just felt it was very important to get the message out there, to give people hope. And in a sea change world that we're so happy to wake up to after 13 years and come into this community of people who are really trying to change, how we look at divorce and how there's an opportunity to have a good outcome to probably one of the worst things that can happen in a relationship.
Nikki, any parting words?
No, thank you very much for having us. We really appreciated it.
Yeah, if you can't tell, the dynamic is
Ben talks so much.
I have a very hard time getting to the point.
Yes.
You get to the point a lot quicker. It's funny because we did I think it was a podcast a couple months ago, and they did it separately. And even within her part, which was 40 minutes, my part was 57 minutes.
Of course it was.
It was just, even when we do it separately, I'm still the blabbermouth. But we really appreciate having you on and whatever it took, congratulations on that.
And having us on.
Yeah, what did I say? Us having you on?
Yeah.
My dyslexia is
it's kicking in today.
Sometimes. Yeah, it's kicking in today. But thank you for having us on, and congratulations on everything you're doing to get that message out there. And even in your own personal life, that win with your ex the other day, it's never too late.
No, not at all.
Well, I really believe now a lot of the guests I've had on, including the two of you, have really opened up my eyes when it comes to me. And again, you talked a lot about it, Ben, taking the ego out and just, not having the ugliness. You don't need the ugliness. And again, a lot of the guests are really giving me hope that I can really have a better relationship with my former spouse, that we are at our son's hockey games or baseball games, and we are sitting together. We are sitting there rooting him and the team on, being there with her husband and my wife. And just, I firmly believe that you two and many others, but you two are onto something in such a great, powerful, positive way. So I really do commend you two. I mean, yeah, you've had ups and downs, but that's what life is all about.
Yeah, and I mean, that story is just so beautiful. And I remember going in the beginning to Asher's baseball games and sitting there, and in that moment, when you're sitting together, there's a singleness of purpose, right? And that is to watch your son win a hockey game, or in our case, a baseball game, and all the other stuff doesn't really matter. And so that is where Nikki and I have focused on, is that singleness of purpose, is not to hand our son the emotional bill of our decisions for him to pay when he didn't even order off the menu. He didn't even eat, but we're going to make him pay for, our consequences. But that moment, I mean, so many times we all just sat together in the beginning, and all of a sudden all the other stuff didn't matter. And then, along the lines, things got better. And then it wasn't at hockey game or baseball games. It was at school events. And then, like I said, one win after another, and then it accumulated to something beyond our wildest imagination.
Well, all the best to two of you. I'm very blessed to have you two on. Susan Guthrie highly recommended me getting in touch with you two. So
the best. Susan is the absolute best.
She's awesome.
We love her so much. We've just had, there's some people, and I'm sure you just get, and that they're along the same paths. And for somebody like Susan to have us on her podcast, and she's read our book twice, and she calls us, I think, the unicorn of divorces.
It's true.
Yeah, it's true. But for a person like that, who's been around this process for 30 plus years, it means so much to us. And it's not about, that we're doing right, but that maybe we can help other people through experience and through relatedness. And that's what the whole, premise of the book is, and the reasoning, the rationale behind writing it. So we love Susan.
Well, all the best to the two of you, to Chad, to Nadia, to Asher, Isabel, Jackson, the dogs.
Beastie,
Beastie and Oreo.
Yeah.
So
Beatrice.
Yeah.
The whole clan.
Many animals.
You can't forget the hamster.
Yeah, never.
Again, thank you. You've
you.
really made my day.
Oh, that means a lot.
That, I feel like I need to email my former wife and just say, I hope you're having a great day.
Oh,
that's awesome. And the other thing is the fact that I know you're trying to wrap this up, but the fact that she sent you that email, there's something that's, there's something to build on, right? And now you can be the one who initiates it to say that, right? And that's what we did in just small steps. And sometimes we had to take 8 backwards, but
right.
We just kept on moving forward, and our personality wouldn't let us give up. So I hope that you and your ex are able to, turn around, and we know it's possible, because if we can do it, anybody can.
And it's true. You just really just put the mindset in. You really just in. Yeah. I do have. I'm sorry. I have one question for you, Nikki. Who do I complain to about the firing of Mike Singletary years ago? Is there like a complaint box I can send that to?
Yeah, MikeSingletary.com.
Okay, thank you, you, Ben. Because I'm a Chicago guy, and when he was fired, I love Mike Singletary. He is just I think he's a great guy, and I was really upset when the 49ers fired him. So. So what was that email address again?
I think it's MikeSingletary.com suggestion box.
Okay.
Suggestion box.
Great guy, great football player, obviously, just not the best head coach. Maybe it was too early. I think maybe it's just thrown in a situation that, a lot of coaches do. And unfortunately, they take it because they want to take it. But it's hard once you get hired too early and you sort of have a couple stumbles to get back to that top and get the HC position again. But I think he will.
Well, look at Bill Belichick when he was with Cleveland.
True. Yeah. Mike's a great guy. I mean, you hear him the one thing you want out of your coach is a motivator, and his speeches and his, it's like Nikki's dad. I mean, you hear Nikki's dad talk and I weigh 170 pounds soaking wet with clothes on. But if I ever heard him talk, I would want to put on pads and go out there and play. There's just people who inspire, and Singletary is definitely one of them.
That's how I felt about being a hockey fan. Herb Brooks.
Oh yeah.
I would be an old school goalie if Herb Brooks told me you're not going to go wear a mask. Whatever you say, Herb, I will do it.
Oh, not even the Jason mask?
Not even the Jason. I would go
old school.
Go old school. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, again, this has been awesome.
And it really has.
Anytime the two of you, or Nikki, if you want to come on solo, you two have an open invite anytime. And I really want what Asher did. I really want to try to see if I can finagle my son coming on the podcast. My first goal is to have my dad on the podcast, because somebody recommended you should do that. But number 2, I really want to have, maybe I have to do it the way you guys did with Asher and just have it in written form. But it's really inspiring.
And that's what, and we're lucky that Asher's willing to do it. And he has a chapter in the book, and he wrote it, but to tell the message, right? To tell the message of what it's like, that even though it obviously, we said it before, wasn't his choice, but what it's like to, have his parents go in Africa on a safari together, or, and then hear the other side of the stories and stories that of high conflict divorces and what that causes the people, because that's what it's all about. It's about your kids, and all, not screwing them up intentionally. And a bad divorce will screw up your kids, and that's the short of it. And it's unfortunate, but it's just such a toxic environment to live in. So yeah, I would encourage the kids to get as many kids talking who are willing to talk, as long as it doesn't cause any more conflict, which is obviously a fine line to high conflict divorces, when kids are talking about how bad their parents' their divorce is. So yeah, Asher's been great. I mean, they asked him a question on Good Morning America. I don't know if you've been able to watch it, but he did great, but unfortunately outshined Nikki and I on our moment on Good Morning America. But he was in the crowd, and they asked him a question. And here's this. I think he was probably 15 at the time. No, he was 16. But and just knocked it with so much confidence and well spoken. It was one. I don't know. It was a very proud moment as a father to see him do that, and to hear him on national TV, like not even be intimidated one bit, and just owned it.
Well, good for you two. You've obviously done an amazing work with Asher, and I'm sure you're doing amazing work with the other kids as well.
Well, we're trying the best we can.
Trying.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm just honored that you two came on.
Well, we're honored to be asked.
So
Thank you.
for having us.
Wait, before you go, please, one more time, give a shout out to our sponsor. This episode was brought to you by Pod Hero, the easiest way to support your favorite podcast. Did you know that only 1% of the biggest podcasts make money? I'm not even into 2.15. I don't even like milk. That's a little milk joke. But it's true. The other 99% rely on support from listeners like you. With Pod Hero, you can support all of your favorite podcasts, and hopefully I am one of them, at a low monthly fee of only $4.99 a month membership. Just click on the link in the show notes for this episode. Tell Pod Hero your favorite podcast. Again, Blending the Family. That's what you just listened to. Please make sure I'm your favorite. Okay? Your contribution gets shared between shows at the end of the month. Pod Hero works with almost all podcasts. There's a 0% platform fee. They don't take a cut. There are no contracts. And you not only get a 30-day free trial, you get my undying, devoted love for the rest of your life. Pod Hero. Thanks for listening.